Okay, guys, today is the day, all right? Today, we are gonna make prosciutto, or as we call it, Pršut. This is not a country ham. Country ham is cured with sugar and salt. This is cured strictly with sea salt. That's what makes it a Pršut or a prosciutto, depending on which region you're from. But basically, here we have a 30-pound hind quarter from a hog, leg on, so we still have the leg, the trotter. We've got the shank. They cut it here to hang it during the butchering process, which is not a problem. We're gonna go ahead and trim this and shape it. We're gonna salt it, and then we're gonna let it cure for about 25 days. So it's gonna be under salt for about 25 days, making sure that that salt penetrates all the way through. And when we open this up, I'm gonna show you guys, there's a joint right here, a ball joint that we need to expose and salt heavily around the ball joint. And then the other areas where you're gonna always have problems are right here from the hock to the trotter. So we're gonna do some special stuff. Hopefully it's gonna work. If it doesn't, I wanna explain something to you guys. Each one of these legs was $30, okay? $30, probably $2 worth of salt. You're in it for $32 and maybe 12 months of your life. And really, the vast majority of the work happens today. The rest of it is just monitoring it, keeping an eye on it. In the store, a prosciutto, a done prosciutto starts at 100 and goes up to, you know, if you want some fancy Iberico prosciutto, you're looking at 300 bucks for a prosciutto. So for a $30 investment and 12 months of my time, I'm okay with that. Secondly, if you know how to cure prosciutto, you're a badass. You're a charcuterie badass. You're basically in the dojo. You're not in Cobra Kai. You're in, what's the other one? Eagle Fang. You're an Eagle Fang. All right. You're a badass. If you could do this, you're a charcuterie badass, because a lot of people are scared to do it. There's really nothing more to it than doing any other meat. Just making sure you're packing the salt, and then it's patience. That's it. But the end result is going to be absolutely spectacular. So give it a try. It's a $35 investment. Not that much. Trust me, you spend more on a good dinner with your wife. So, all right. First step, I'm going to clear up the work area, and then I'm going to start trimming. And trimming is going to be a long process on this to make sure that we got this right. So give me a minute. I'll be right back. Okay, guys. So what we're trying to do here is remove, this is part of the hip bone. We want to remove this hip bone right here and expose the ball joint in here. And then it's all about shaping and trimming and bleeding the main arterial valve that's in there, or vein rather. So I'm just going to start going around the bone here, trying to expose it as gently as possible, because I don't want to lose a ton of meat. And funny enough, I have never done this before. This is my first time venturing into Pršut. So we're going to do this together. And not only are we going to do it together, I'm going to post these videos as I do them. So if you guys want to follow along this winter, I would suggest you go ahead and do it. And like I said, we're looking at a $30 investment here. So number one, the most important thing is you got to have a razor sharp knife to debone this. But be very cautious, because the knife is sharp and it will cut you like we got here. So we're gonna just work our way around this bone until we get to that ball joint. And once we expose that ball joint, it's a lot easier. All right, so this is some really, really tough skin here, tendon. I don't know what that is, but boy, oh boy. So cut a little, feel a little. It's kind of the way you should always do it, especially not knowing the shape of this bone. If I had done this in the past, I'd probably already know the shape of the bone and I could kind of cruise through this a little faster. I kind of have an idea of what it is. I can feel the ball socket right around here. So just got to get around this side. I'm trimming around it because this bone has to come out, but you don't want to cut so much that you're damaging the Pršut. Okay, come on. Little bastich goes down here in the corner. There it is. All right, I got the end of it. To get around it, it's not that big of a deal. But here it is, guys. So, see that right there? That's the hip bone, right? So now what we want to do is just give it a, it's going to need a little more to get it free. You cut gently. We don't want to cut that. We want to take the tendons and the silver skin off. We don't want to cut the ball joint necessarily. There she is. All right. Okay, not too bad, not too bad. For the first time, oof, not too bad. That's nasty. All right, so here's the bone, guys. This is the joint that the hip sits in, filled with some kind of juicy schmegma that's absolutely disgusting. But you can see this is what we have to remove so we can expose the prosciutto here. And this area here, around this knuckle here, around this ball, is a critical area for salting. So now what we're doing is really, now we're just shaping, right? We got to shape it, we got to trim it, we want to take off some of the loose stuff. We don't want a bunch of loose meat flapping around like this. It's not going to be, it's not going to have a good result, because the loose meat, A, is going to dry out, and you're not going to be able to eat it. It's not going to be edible. So all these loose little bits here, we're going to trim out, like this stuff right here. And this, if you are going to be making a prosciutto, this is a good time to maybe take some of this excess meat and make some sausage if you're going to be spending all this time with this amount of meat. Okay, so let's start trimming this. I want you guys to see this, but I am working upside down here. Okay, see, so all I'm doing here is trimming it to that traditional Pršut shape. I want to get this off. I want to expose more of this meat. I want to try to take off some of the silver skin and the fat around here. Clean up this ball joint a little bit. And then one of the main things we have to do is bleed that arterial, that main vein, which isn't a big deal. It's just basically squeezing down on the meat. So I got this ham over at Peoria Packing in downtown Chicago. And I called Andy. It's one of the guys, he's always there. Really nice guy, Greek guy. I said, Andy, I need a prosciutto, piece of raw ham that I can make into a prosciutto. And he basically said, John, no problem. Come by Saturday, pick it up. And right on the box, it was written, pork prosciutto cut. So, not the first guy to do this, obviously. And the fact that he had exactly what I needed was really kind of nice, pleasant surprise. Okay, so this is like this is a nice chunk of meat here. I'm not afraid of this drying out too much. This scares me a little bit in here. I think I might just take this up because it's kind of a pocket, and pockets are not good. This is some of the sirloin here, and this is all around, and I'm just going to trim this up again. And again, this is just purely to make it pretty. Okay, I think that's pretty freaking close. I mean, it looks like a prosciutto to me, right? Jesus Christ. Motherfucker, that's heavy. Okay, so now we want to focus a little bit on the top. This actually, one thing I don't like is when you cut the skin and get under it, that's bad. Because then this piece of skin sticks out, gets dry as a rock, and it's razor sharp. So I'm going to try to very, very gently trim this stuff up here. But again, this is where all the curing is going to occur. You put salt on this, doesn't matter. Salt's not penetrating the skin. It's too dry, it's too hard. This is where all the curing is going to happen. All the magic happens on the exposed meat. Just want to take off some of that silver skin, because silver skin is not your friend when you are curing meat. I'm going to try to get this to meet up to here. Can you hold that leg? Right here at the knee. All right. Looks appropriate. Looks good, in my opinion. You guys may have a different opinion, but let me know if I screwed this up. So now the next thing we need to do here is we're going to start here, and we're going to squeeze this main vein here. Really just try to squeeze out. You can see here all that blood that just came out around that joint. So we're gonna get paper towel. See that? That blood inside that artery will absolutely cause your meat to rot. So what you want to do is squeeze it outside to push that blood out. It's just simply applying some pressure, trying to get that blood until it doesn't come out anymore. You can see, look at all this. Jesus Christ. See all that? We're going to push a little more up here because I'm seeing it come out over here too. Okay. Oh yeah, see? Jesus. Like a freaking war zone down here. Okay, so drain the artery. This will cause the meat to rot. So I'm gonna leave this. I'm gonna leave it. I'm just gonna pack it real good with salt. Okay, so that's one. I've got one more to go. And I'm going to hang this one up for now. And then I'm going to come back to it when it's time to salt. All right, I'll be back in a second, guys. Okay, guys, so this is before, this is after. After trimming, you can see we have this nice shelf here. We've exposed some of the skin on top. We've trimmed it nicely. It's got the nice appropriate shape. This is exactly what we're looking for. I might take a little bit more off of here and off of here, but this is it. This is what it needs to look like when it's done. This is what it looks like before we do it. You can see there's the joint. Here's this piece, here's that piece. Okay? And so we're going to be trimming out this bone. So this is what it needs to look like. Okay guys, so here we go. Trimmed. Took me about 20 minutes total for both legs. Really not that big of a deal. I tried to shape the skin nicely to go around. So this is where all the salt, the majority of the salt's going to get applied. We're going to pack it in. We're going to pack it in around the hip bone. I'm going to pack it into this hole. We've got a hole here from when they slaughtered the pigs and they hung the meat. I'm going to pack this, and then I'm going to pack the trotter too as much as I can, and see if we can actually get some meat in there. I'm not going to weigh the salt, right? There is no, everything I've read and everybody that I've talked to, in particular old Croatian men, they're like, you just put enough salt so it's good. Well, how much is enough salt so it's good? I don't know. So what I've read is 5 to 7% by weight. We know this is about 60 pounds of meat before it was trimmed. So I'm going to probably go 5% salt and see where that gets me in terms of the weight. And then I'm going to pack this whole area, and I'm actually going to leave it on this cutting board and just cover it with saran wrap and leave it in my garage exposed. I'm going to pack all the salt on here, all the salt in here, cover it with saran wrap and leave it for about 21 days, give or take. I'll probably move it around a little bit, do some stuff, try to get it out of the way. But for the most part, I'm packing the salt in the zone where there's no skin, and I'll still put it on the skin. And then I'm going to leave it for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, somewhere in there. And beyond that, after about 4 weeks, this goes down into my basement in a relatively humid room where I'm curing meat. And it's going to sit until next year. And that's it. So video number 1 is this portion here of the trimming and the salting, and then we're gonna move it around a little bit, and I'm gonna show you guys when it goes into the room, and then you're not gonna see it until next year. So I want you guys to try to find a ham leg like this, and I want you guys to try this and do it with me at the same time. So I'm gonna post this probably, if not tonight, maybe tomorrow, and we're gonna try to do this together if possible, because honestly I'm thinking this is gonna turn out really good, and I'm probably gonna be mad that I only did 2 legs. I should have done more, but hey, let's try it first before, you know, we get crazy. So, all right, I'm gonna weigh this real quick, and then I'm gonna show you guys how I salt it. There's no need for me to show you the weights. Okay, guys, so we have weighed both legs. We have weighed the salt, which this is 3% salt. So I'm in a little bit of a conundrum here because I don't have a good place to rest this leg for the next 3 weeks. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start it off on the cutting board and on my workbench, covered with a little bit of plastic to keep the dirt off of it. And then I'm gonna build a wooden crate. Now that I have the actual dimensions of the full leg, I'm gonna build a wooden crate, like literally a square, and it's gonna have a board right down the center. So then I can lay the meat in there. It's gonna be on wood. I can pack it with salt and then press it down. And that's a very important thing to do when you're making prosciutto. So after salting, you need to put pressure on here to slowly flatten this prosciutto out. Otherwise, what's gonna happen, it's gonna be a little bit too round in shape, which isn't a bad thing, but appropriate, traditional is a little bit flatter, and I think that helps it dry a little bit more. The other thing is, typically when we're doing whole muscle dry curing, we want to lose 35% of the weight. With a prosciutto, it's a little bit different. It's more like 25, 30% of the weight. Everything that I've read and people that I've talked to, you're really trying to lose about 30% of the original weight. So what I've done here is I've just taken a little marker and I've marked the weight on each toe of the hog, because this, quite honestly, is, we're not going to eat this. So 19.6 pounds on this one, 18.5 on this one. This is about 9% salt. All of that salt is going to go right here. All of it's getting packed in right here. Then I'm going to pull off about another 4 or 5 ounces of salt. I'm going to throw some under the table, and I'm going to use the balance, the 2%, on the skin areas here. So that's kind of how I broke it out. This is all going here. This is all going here. The other 2% are just going to go on the areas that have skin on it right now. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and pack this with salt. And this is just pure sea salt, nothing more, nothing less. And we want to be real generous here. And then we want to work it into all these, see, look at this right here. All these cracks, all these crevices have to get completely filled with salt. You really want to work around this joint, as my friend calls it, the eyeball. You want to get all that salt massaged into all these little nooks and crannies. And this is part of the reason we spent the time to trim this thing up as nicely as we did. And I'm just gonna lay it on here. I'm not gonna, after I forced it down the first round, I'm not gonna go ahead and force it any more than that. So, just gonna tuck it in here. Now we know I'm gonna move this in a minute. So I'm gonna go ahead and set this one to the side. I'm going to do it again. Okay, so when you look at the structure of these legs too, you know, the vast majority of the meat is actually exposed. It's just this little upper hock, rather I should say lower area here, that is covered in skin. So I could see how this salt is going to take time, but it's going to equalize and work its way into these other areas. You are putting quite a bit of salt in comparison to the weight. It's really not that much, right? Because we use 3% salt on everything on a hog. Bacon, loins, ribs, sausage. So 3% when you have a 20-pound hind quarter really is not too much. That's it, right? No sugar. Sugar is only for country ham. We're doing Pršut. So we want to pack that real good, that eyeball. Now I'm going to rearrange them. I'm going to get a little bit more salt. I'm going to put them on one cutting board here. I'm going to tilt the cutting board a little bit. I'm going to try to cover some of the skin areas. And then I'll show you what it looks like when I set it where I'm going to set it for now. So, all right. Okay, guys, so I packed on 3% salt. I took 2% more, 5% total. And I covered, number one, I covered the lower cutting board with salt. Just that way the salt is on the back side of the hog too. And I shoved, they had cut, like I said, the hock here. So I shoved a ton of salt into the hock, which isn't that big of a deal because this is where a second area, prime area, where you are going to ruin a Pršut because you don't put enough salt in the hock. Now, normally when you get them, the trotter has been cut off and you could pack it down this way. But whatever, this one hasn't been removed, so I just went ahead and packed it in this way. And then right here, the trotter was split, so I shoved a bunch of salt in there, and you could see I caked it on top. I'm going to leave it like this. It's over my workbench by about 1 inch. And then I put a 1x back here to create some positive drainage, so as this drains off, it's going to come down and hit the concrete. No harm, no foul. I'll just have to wash it off. I'm going to loosely tent this with something. I don't know what yet. Maybe some cheesecloth or something, a little piece of plastic. I don't know if plastic's the best thing to put over it because it won't breathe. So something. There's no flies in the air. It's 38 degrees in the garage right now. So perfect temperature to be curing at, but there's no insects in the area, so we're okay in terms of that. You can see here, I'm just going to keep an eye on this, make sure that everything stays like this for the next 3 weeks or until I build my box and go from there. The next step, I'm going to give it about 2 weeks, and then I'm going to put the other cutting board on top, and then I'm going to weigh it down because I want to press the meat. You can press the meat while it's in the equalization period. It will not affect the penetration of the salt down into the bone. So I'm going to go ahead and press it at some point in the next 2 weeks as well. So that's it for video 1, guys. A little bit of a long video, but I want you guys to join in. Let's do this together. Let's make Pršut.